And we're back. Episode 37 of the world-renowned Punching Down podcast. I'm filling in the blanks there on the world-renowned part. People watch it. I see the analytics. People are watching it all over the world, and I'm sure some of them are renounding it. Is that a proper use of that term? I don't think so. But we are back. We have exciting news. Not well, kind of, I guess, what we kind of thought was going to happen. But earlier today, Donald Trump packed it in. Well, he didn't really pack it in, but he kind of gave the closest thing that he would do to a concession, where he goes, all right, I don't exactly know the whole process. It's weird. I was like, leading up to the election, I was like probably a lot of people, I was obsessive about politics, and I was, following it so closely, rightfully so. I live in America. I live in, New York City, and I was really following it. And then once it kind of all shook out, I just could not give a shit. And like up until that point, I had been watching it a lot, but yeah, like now I'm just like, I don't really care. It seemed like it was kind of a done deal that Biden's going to win. People are still saying it's rigged. Trump is still saying it's rigged. He basically said, he's like, all right, we're going to start the transition of power because something like the GSA, I don't even know what it is, but they basically signed off. They gave Pennsylvania to Biden. It's a done deal. So Trump's going to keep fighting. He just tweeted like 20, 30 minutes ago. He's like, we're not done fighting with their rigged machines. And it's weird because the funny thing is like, one, the whole issue with, just the fact that everybody on the left is like, it's like, you're a sore loser. It's over. There was no election impropriety, interference, anything like that. But these are obviously the exact same people for the last 4 years who are basically saying the previous election was rigged. And now you're starting to see conservatives who are like doing the not my president thing. It's like ridiculous. There was some kind of hope. Like is just from now on, every time someone is the president, the other side just goes, that's not my president. Like, is that just going to be the new trend that Trump, I guess, started? Well, he didn't technically start it. His opponents, people who hated him, started where you go, that guy's not my president. But now all the people on the right, like who are like all these MAGA people, are now just like, now they're changing their bios to hashtag resist not my president. Like it's flipping over. It's ridiculous. And then all these people who, essentially made Trump their entire identity, not even made Trump their entire identity, but it's just like their whole identity was either like resisting or whatever. And now they got to switch it up. And then all the MAGA people who are, with all the stop the steal stuff, you got that, all of that going on. They want to stop that steal, which is not going to happen. I saw Trump on his Twitter. He has a pinned thing right now of a thing tonight with Tucker Carlson on the Tucker Carlson show, who it's interesting. Like all the right-wing people are turning on him because Tucker Carlson is like not basically just like taking the spoon-fed like Trump was robbed thing. His whole thing is he's like, look, he's actually taking a pretty like, moderate approach to all this too, where he's basically saying like, look, if there was some sort of fucking election interference or, there was like, just like there was impropriety or whatever, he's like, we should just find out about it. And I don't know what his position was on the last election, although I don't remember them ever saying anything other than the Russia stuff. I don't think they were ever saying there was like, voting machines were fraudulent or whatever. But then he brought on this dude who's like, the guy said 10 times, he's like, I don't like Donald Trump. I do not vote for Donald Trump. I'm just like a researcher, and we're just researching because he's like, I don't like that big tech companies are able to like sway the elections and they're unregulated completely. And they basically gave the Biden a huge advantage by like in terms of search results and all that stuff. Essentially what, not exactly what they were saying the Russians were doing, but in the last election, but essentially just, they're helping. They're helping. They're unbiased. They're not unbiased. Sorry, they're very biased. So, anyways, and he was on, and then like all the comments on Trump's tweet were like, "You fucking lost." But the whole thing is like the guy was like, "Yeah," he's like, "I just think like, this won't be the end of it. Like if companies are, using these powers, they might use them. People who obviously won are like don't care because their side won, so they're like, yeah, you lost. But these are the same people who were crying about it last time around. And he's like, it might not go your way next time. You should care just if you care about democracy. And then, but all these people are like, yeah, we don't really care about democracy. We just care about getting the orange man out. And the orange man looks to be done. He looks to be done. He's out. It's exciting. It was about time. It was not a matter of time. It was a matter of time. He was so close to it. He got fucked with all that. Another coronavirus vaccine. So the past 3 Mondays since the election happened, there has been a new coronavirus vaccine coming out. This one today, I forget which one, but this one was not quite as effective as the other two, but still pretty good. They're gonna have They're gonna be fucking jabbing people with vaccines as early as I think they said December 11th or December 12th. I laughed at a lot. There's an article in the New York Times today. From this woman. Her name is Shira Frankel. I guess she's a Jew. Yeah, she's a pretty Jew name. But anyway, so she wrote this article. It goes, how misinformation super spreaders, she used that term, but not the way we're using it currently, because we're not super spreaders for a virus, but it's like a super spreader mind virus, seed false election theories. How misinformation super spreaders seed false election theories. And it says researchers have found that a small group of social media accounts are responsible for the spread of a disproportionate amount of the false posts about voter fraud. So basically what they're talking about is all the stop the steal stuff, how there's all these so Eric Trump and Diamond and Silk, those two black ladies, and then this guy, Brandon Straka. They're all these just right-wing YouTubers essentially who have become popular, and they're on Facebook. And I don't even know who the fuck's using Facebook anymore, man. I go on there. That is it's almost got to the point where people are you're suspicious when people use Facebook still. You're like, well, what are you doing on there, huh? Nothing good happening on Facebook. All the other social media apps are where it's at. Facebook is the worst of them, I would say. Obviously, Instagram's great, which they own, but Facebook's terrible. But anyways, there's this whole article about it, how all these people are spreading misinformation about stop the steal. And you're you're the New York Times. For 4 years, you were nonstop spreading all these bullshit theories about the Russia collusion and just all this absolute nonsense. And it's so funny that they can just completely disregard all that stuff, just they were never they don't really get. They go, oh, these people are spreading misinformation, and you're yeah, and all the people who listen to these people think you're spreading misinformation. And I know, and both parties think that neither of them are spreading misinformation. They think that they're both spreading the truth, and that the other side is spreading misinformation. But it's the New York Times was supposed to be the paper of, wasn't it the paper of record? That was what they were referred to as. They're the paper of record. They were whatever they say is legit and all that stuff. And they're just tearing apart all these QAnon. By the way, QAnon's fucked, huh? That was the whole thing. If there's all these people too, and these threads, and they're the QAnon people, because QAnon, Trump can't, under QAnon, Trump can't lose, right? That's not an option that Trump loses. So then they're all just yeah, this is just part of an elaborate scheme. If he somehow still manages to win this, which I don't think is going to happen, because I'm sure he's just going to be see, I told you there's this deep state, and they rigged the election, and they stole it from me, and now I'm on the outs, and there you go, and I tried to drain the swamp and all that bullshit or whatever. But if he somehow manages to be president again, those QAnon people are going to fucking go crazy. They're going to they'll for sure believe that QAnon's real, but now they're all yeah, so it looks like he's going to lose, but that's not possible because of Q. I'm kind of getting a little disenfranchised with this whole Q business. I'm trying to think, maybe it's bullshit. That'd be cool, though, if he does lose, and then everybody's oh, I guess Q's a nonsense, and then just the person who has Q comes out, and they're yeah, so it's a 16-year-old kid. He's I I was on Facebook and I was bored one day and it just kind of got away from me. I feel like there will be in the future, like once this all settles down, there will be a documentary on like who Q was, and I'm sure it'll be funny. It's Thanksgiving is coming up. Thanksgiving, exciting. Thanksgiving is coming up. People are Fauci. Everybody's saying like, you can't do Thanksgiving. You can't do Thanksgiving this year, and it's weird because I'm Canadian and I don't know why, but so Canada has a different Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgiving's in October, but growing up, Jews don't really celebrate Thanksgiving in Canada. I don't know why, but they just never really did. It was like none of my friends who were Jewish really. I had one friend I remember who celebrated Thanksgiving, but I guess because it's like mom wasn't Jewish. Nobody else did. I don't get it because it's not really like a denominational holiday. But then in the States, everybody celebrates Thanksgiving except for those pesky natives. No, but most people celebrate Thanksgiving here. But anyways, so they're trying to be like, do they call them natives here? I guess they call them Indian American. I don't know, but they're trying to just tell everybody, oh, you can't celebrate Thanksgiving. Governor Cuomo, what up with all the Cuomo-sexuals? He was on today, and he's like, my daughter, she lives in Chicago, and even though I want to see her, she's not coming to Thanksgiving. And then he's like, but my mother's coming, and we're gonna have a Thanksgiving thing. And people were like, what? What are you talking about? And he's like, oh. And then like an hour later, he just canceled it. So no Thanksgiving this year for Cuomo. I am not doing anything really. Gonna have some. Not even gonna have turkey. It's weird too. All these stores, like, cause like I saw something on like airplane traffic, and it's actually up. It's like there's a lot of traffic. It's 50% below what it was last year, but still more than what you think. And there's just kind of the thing where people are like, "Fuck this shit. We don't care anymore. You're telling us there's a vaccine coming. Just figure. You know what? You're the politicians. We pay you decent money to run this shit and figure it out. So figure this shit out." And we're just going to fucking live our lives. And we're going to eat turkey. And we're having gravy. Going to be a lot of gravy spilled this year. I'm sure a lot of families broken up over Trump. I mean, there's going to be some smug, like, nephews and nieces. Because everybody's like, oh, my fucking racist uncle who voted for Trump. Like, you've heard that a million times. You're like, I fucking hate him. And then they're going to be like, probably those racist uncles, like, if they're like, oh, your niece is coming. They're like, yeah, I'm just going to stay home this year. I'm worried about the virus, so I'm just going to not go out just in case the virus takes us down. But yeah, so they're shutting shit down too. Like, not here in New York, they're not shutting shit down. Although they're threatening it. They're really like they're telegraphing it, because I think if they telegraph it, then they don't have to. They'll be like, well, we warned you. We told you we were shutting everything down, and it's coming. They shut down everything in L.A. They're just gonna fuck businesses over too. Like, I talked about it last week because Justin Trudeau said like the whole Great Reset, and how this Great Reset thing is this big conspiracy theory, but like there's this element with the Great Reset or whatever where, like, small businesses are being crushed and major corporations are basically benefiting hugely, and people are forced to spend it. And the Great Reset, like, whatever conspiracy is that this was all planned, right? And while I definitely agree with that whole element, this like wealth transfer from small businesses to larger businesses, I don't think it's planned. It was just the circumstance where this thing happened. And it's like, like, I remember when I got back to New York after being away for 3 months, and all these small coffee shops around me had closed down, and the Starbucks is like a ghost town, and it's still empty, but it's still open. And the reason is because, Starbucks can not sell coffee in any location in the world for 5 years and probably be fine. Like, they're not going to like be doing amazing, but they're not going bankrupt. Whereas like a mom and pop coffee shop, like, they, you don't sell coffee for 2 months, and if you don't have a cool landlord or whatever, like, you're just done. And that's kind of what happened. And obviously the people like going to Amazon and like all that shit. So yeah, there is this incredible wealth transfer that's going on to public companies, and like, it is definitely a bad thing. I don't know, like, at least I can say no comedy clubs have closed since last week's episode where I was noting that a few comedy clubs have closed. So none have closed, but yeah, the Great Reset thing was it was interesting because there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, this Great Reset, and you're like, it wasn't planned, it wasn't premeditated, this whole thing, but it's just kind of how it shook out. Was they're fucking people over. On top of Thanksgiving being canceled, Christmas is probably canceled, not canceled. I'm Jewish, I don't really care, but the best is Santa Claus, Fauci. They were, I don't know where he was getting interviewed, but Fauci came out and he said, "Don't worry about Santa Claus. He's immune to COVID-19." This is the headline. Santa Claus is immune to COVID-19, says Dr. Anthony Fauci. And so basically he said, Santa will be spreading lots of joy, not COVID-19. Imagine if he gave everybody COVID-19. Imagine Santa was like, I thought I was immune. And then he's like, he's the ultimate super spreader. Like, he just goes in everybody's house and that would be like an actual like Christian plague too. Cause it would be like religion specific where you're like, it was one of the worst things that's ever happened to Christianity ever. It's like 1/3 of all Christian households were affected and tens of millions of Christians died while those fucking Jews and Muslims just laughed their asses off. Sorry, who else did I left out some other religions too, but yeah, Santa is Fauci said Santa is exempt from this because Santa, of all the good qualities, has a lot of good innate immunity. Doesn't sound very scientific, Fauci. The one thing I want to know is like, who is he talking to? What 6-year-old is watching fucking Anthony Fauci briefings right now? He's like, I wonder what's going on with the state of coronavirus. And then they turn on Fauci, and Fauci's like, don't worry, kiddos. Santa Claus is very real, and he can't get COVID. And you're like, yeah, I'm a little more mature for a 6-year-old. I watch Fauci briefings, and like, what are other parents or other kids who are like, what is Santa gonna get COVID? Is because Santa is like, in the most at risk categories of old fat dude, and he's super old. He's traveling all over the place. Doesn't take care of himself. So, but I was like reading this and I was like, what is this for? Like who like this was news, and I use the news, lightly. This wasn't real like news or whatever, but like kids aren't taking this in. Like kids don't watch CNN and Fox News and they're like, just in Anthony Fauci saying Santa can't get COVID, and kids are like, oh, that's a relief. I was going to leave him some cookies and some... You're not even leaving cookies this year for Santa. You're just leaving PPE. There will be some fucking lame-ass families who do that, though. They're like, we're not leaving cookies this year because of COVID. Because they're, like, trying to teach their kids, like, being, like, sanitary and all this stuff. So they're like, we're not leaving cookies and milk. We're leaving masks and hand sanitizer for Santa. And you're like, isn't he, like, some otherworldly being? Does he really need to... use hand sanitizer? I'm like, yes, he does. So that's what's going on with the holidays. Really exciting stuff. We'll stick to COVID news. This is pretty fucked up. This is one of the more fucked up things that I'd say I've read. So Tyson Chicken, they're like a chicken manufacturer. By the way, the amount of turkeys not getting eaten this year. Good year to be a turkey, huh? It's a bad joke. But it wasn't even a joke, really. That was just an observation that it was a good year. I can't believe all these stores are selling all this stuff, too. They're telling all these, like, telling everybody you can't have Thanksgiving. But then all, like, you go to Trader Joe's or Target and they're selling turkeys. And you're like, you're just killing every turkey you sell to someone. It's a goddamn death sentence, Target. You're killing Nana by selling these turkeys. But anyway, so Tyson Foods, they're a big chicken manufacturer. Because, like, when COVID broke out, they were like chicken processing facilities were, like, basically where the greatest spread was. 'Cause everybody's so close to each other. And, they would have 40% of the people coming down with COVID. It was really bad. And so there's a wrongful death lawsuit tied to COVID 19 infections in a Waterloo pork processing plant. I don't know where this is, maybe Texas or something. And it alleges that during the initial stages of the pandemic, Tyson Foods ordered employees to report for work while supervisors privately wagered money on the number of workers who would be sickened by the deadly virus. That's a weird fucking incentive. I wonder how that got found out. You know, that just does not look good. And like, you know, because it might not be as bad as people think. It might not be like, oh, they were like running like a Michael Vick style dogfighting ring where they were like betting on it. It's probably like, you know, two fucking assholes who were like, I wonder if it'll be like, it was probably one of the guys was like, didn't think COVID was real. So he's like, I don't know. He's like, I bet you'll be under 5. And you never know. It is, I guess, misleading, but it is kind of shitty to be like, if you're betting on the amount of people who got COVID, and then some of them died. People die from COVID. Yeah, if you better watch out if you get COVID. The weird, you know what I don't understand about the thing COVID going on? Maybe I'm just too stupid for this, but they keep saying, like, you keep seeing these articles about COVID where they say like, oh, you think COVID's bad. The long-term consequences of COVID are even worse. You're like, how do you know this? It's only been around for 6 months. Like, people are like, they're acting like they know how it's going to affect you 20 years from now. And I'm like, I don't understand how they know this, because I've seen a number of things. My mom tells us, because she's all worried about COVID, and she'll be like, you don't know. She's like, they're saying there's some really bad long-term consequences of COVID. I'm like, how do you know that? How does anybody know long-term consequences? They didn't even know this thing existed a year ago. I mean, I think right about COVID is about a year old. Happy birthday to COVID. That's, I wonder if they could find out the exact date, but it's probably like right around 1 year old today. Almost today. It's something like that. Should I sing happy birthday to COVID? Maybe I'll do it on the outro. Sing a little happy birthday to COVID. Cute little COVID. I'm an idiot. Yeah. This is another actually related to Thanksgiving too. Is this is crazy? Like, people are getting really tired with their governments too. Like in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Health Secretary, Dr. Rachel Levine, issued a 1-night suspension. This is a pretty fucking shrewd / dick move, but I mean, I get what they're trying to do. But a 1-night suspension of alcohol sales starting at 5:00 on Wednesday, because I guess they were saying, I find that so hard to believe too. They're saying that the night before Thanksgiving is the biggest drinking night of the year, like for bars or whatever, bars and restaurants. So they straight up just they shut it down. They're shutting down all the bars. But I guess that is because, Thanksgiving is the one, especially if you're like in school or whatever, you come home for the weekend, you see all your old friends, you go out, you get drunk, and so they're shutting it down. But man, people are really getting over these restrictions. Like, they are not having it. I saw something in, I think it was Vice, but how in New York they're like, yeah, the clubs never closed, they just moved underground. I'm not cool enough where I know of underground clubs. I did go to this one like bar basically in Williamsburg maybe 2 months ago that was essentially like a packed club that you would have gone to in 2019, and they just were a private party that's selling tickets. It's not open to the public, even though it was. You could just buy tickets, which is like essentially the same as just paying a cover. You just had to like pay your cover on Eventbrite instead of at the door. And then you just go in, and they're like, it was just a regular club, essentially. It was it's pretty wild. But yeah, so they're shutting it down. And then in the comments, too, on this post, everybody's so mad because this Dr. Rachel... It's so weird, too. This Dr. Rachel Levine is a trans woman. Used to be Richard Levine. How does that work? If you're trans... I'm sorry for dead naming her... just that's what her name used to be. But do you is there a thing where you keep the same initial? I think if I was trans, I would want to keep my initials. Like, I would definitely, I would definitely change the name, and I wouldn't be one of those people like I'm Danny. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm just Danielle now. I think I would go with a new name, but still a D, just so I could keep the initials. I think that part would be confusing to me. That would be my probably big issue with going trans, is I would be like, I don't want new initials. That would just be confusing. I don't want that. But then all these people are like jumping all over, and you're like, it doesn't really have to do with anything. Speaking of the world of funny gender things, I don't know if this is really gender, but this is great. So I saw this on Twitter. This is from California. So this is Muir Woods. There's a sign at the Muir Woods National Monument. This is somewhere in California, from the National Park Service, U.S. Department of Interior. Muir Woods, queer woods. I did not know woods could be queer, but these are queer woods, apparently. These are some gay-ass woods. So the Muir Woods, this is from the sign. Muir Woods is highlighting, this is just like the sign when you enter a forest, basically. Muir Woods is highlighting queer ecology and the new perspectives it gives us in this forest. I don't know what queer ecology is. Queer ecology, oh, they're about to tell us. Sorry, I jumped the gun there. Queer ecology is the study of reimagining how people think about nature. It studies gender, sexuality, and behavior in the natural world. Queer ecology questions the way people categorize nature into binaries or boxes. Oftentimes, these boxes don't account for how diverse nature is. Things are rarely as simple as either A or B or C. Nature is more of a blend of them all. Some boxes, queer ecology challenges are male, female, natural, unnatural, and human nature. As you explore the woods today, we hope you find new ways to view the world around you. When was a time you saw something in a new light? And then literally every person is like, what? What the fuck is queer woods? Imagine like looking at like a fir tree and you're like, how is this? What does this have to do with queer shit? I don't get this. This is a queer tree, or these woods are. Where's all the rainbow flags in the woods? What is queer about this? Obviously going for a hike is pretty gay, but that's a pretty gay thing. I guess you could say that. You could put that in the queer woods. And then there was a follow up on their website, which is now down, because obviously a lot of people are like, what is this? Like, the government is paying for this? What the fuck? You know what? If this government was paying for something like this in Canada, you'd be like, yeah, that seems pretty normal. But queer ecology. So it says queer ecology is a series of practice that reimagines how people think about nature. It studies. Oh yeah, I just read that. Sorry. It studies gender, sexuality, and behavior in the natural world. It uses the word queer because it draws from a related field called queer theory. Queer theory studies dominant social norms around sexuality and the way those norms hurt people who are queer. Queer ecology looks at how dominant social norms impact our understanding of nature. What does this have to do with trees? A common way mainstream American society understands nature is, so it says either or boxes like male or female, natural and unnatural, human and nature. And then it says, look at nature with our societal norms. We might look at two spiders and assume the big one is the male or dad, and the smaller one is the female or mom. I don't think so. That's not necessarily. There's lots of instances in nature where the female is bigger. Plus, aren't those spiders that, like, when they have sex, they kill the guy? I wouldn't see that at all. Queer ecology investigates if the norms we put on people apply to plants, animals, and insects. This is such an unnecessary... Like, the idea that some people were sitting around patting themselves on the back, being like, you know what we need to do? We need to queer up these woods. That's what we need to do. We need to really get these woods just as gay as humanly possible. This is so stupid. Queer ecology investigates if the norms we put on people apply to plants, animals, and insects. Often the answer is... Did I already read this? Oh, yes. Often the answer is no, just like the answer is no with the spider example above. If many species of spiders, the physically larger spiders are female. Yeah, that's what I kind of said that. Many times these societal perceptions don't universally apply to people either. I mean, most of the time larger people are men. There are some larger people who are women. And people who have sex with them have fetishes. Right? Many times the societal perceptions don't universally apply to either people. No, they don't universally apply, but they mostly apply. Like, women are mostly, smaller than men, like 95% of them. It's so weird. It's like they take these tiny exceptions and they like want to go apply it to the fucking woods. Like it's saying like, oh, you know what? Most of the time, a maple tree is bigger than a birch tree, but not all the time. So now we have to apply this to everything. And you're like, why can't it just be that that's the case sometimes? When we impose our societal norms on nature, we miss how diverse nature really is. Honestly, I'm going to miss how diverse nature really is if I'm thinking about how queer stuff is when I'm walking around the woods. Like if I'm like walking around the woods, I'm just going to be distracted by the fact that I'm like, what does this have to do with queer shit? That would be the part that would distract me. I really would not that I wouldn't be able to enjoy it, but that would definitely be at the top of my mind, being like, so wait, I need to look at these woods through a queer lens? That would be the thing that would be distracting the most to me, I think. Weird shit going on. There was, did I mention that there were protests? There was a protest near my house yesterday. I don't know why I'm coming back to this. I'm looking at my notes right now of what I wanted to talk about, and I missed the part where people were burning masks. There have been a bunch of protests. There was one in Huntington Beach. They're like basically protesting curfews, and here in Union Square, and they just burn masks, and I don't really know what the point is. They're just like, they just go buy a bunch of masks and they burn them, and then that's it. And people are like, yeah, there you go. They're still going to use the police to lock you down. I don't know why I jumped off that topic, but I just saw that on my notes. So I was like, yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, I got one more thing to talk about. This one's an insane one. I saved it for last because it's the best. Okay, so my hometown, Toronto, Ontario. Some people here listen to it. They might know what I'm talking about. So a woman, her name is Evie Kwong. She is does something for the Toronto Star, which is a newspaper in Toronto. She's not big or whatever, but she's Asian, if you couldn't tell by her name, Evie Kwong. So she writes this on Twitter. This is a few days ago, because there's a white-owned trendy spot on Ossington, which is like a trendy strip in West End of Toronto, on Ossington, is selling bone broth across from Golden Turtle Pho. I know people say pho. I feel ridiculously saying pho, but it is, or pho or whatever, but it's like pho or whatever. But it's like, the Vietnamese soup. Also sexualizing jerk sauce. Jerk is in quotation marks. And pho hot sauce, pho. And making superfood dumplings for profit. Y'all, I'm sick. So basically she's mad because a white woman opened up a restaurant selling dumplings, which, again, you're not allowed to sell dumplings unless you're Asian. And you probably have to be the right kind of Asian, because, like, I've been to parts of Asia that they don't sell dumplings. They don't do dumplings. I'm sure you get a pass, though, if you're that kind of Asian, because, like, people are kind of confused about whether it's, you're like, you don't want to be like, hey, are you the right kind of Asian? And they're like, I am actually. And you go, oh, no, I'm in the wrong here. The best, though, is that she had to be like, oh, my God. They're selling a hot sauce, a jerk sauce, and the name of it is Jerk Me. Like, these are, and there's another thing too. So I'll keep going, but like, I'll just come back to that point. So here's what she says. She goes, the cultures they are taking from literally fight daily for legitimacy. They don't. The wellness cleansing, damn it, I just clicked on it. The wellness cleansing of the food, the lack of historical understanding, and the number of followers is alarming. I'm not trying to knock small businesses, but damn, this one hurts. It doesn't hurt. You're just a fucking whiny bitch. I legit threw out my Chinese food lunches because white kids would make fun of it all day. I bought into Pizza Day and dry-ass turkey burgers, so did many others. And now you're taking our culture and selling it, and people think it's legit? Damn. Okay, first off, I lived really close to where this place is. I never saw it because it opened after I left. But, like, just down the street on Bloor, like, in Ossington, there's pizza places that are run by Asian people. Like, fuck off with this stupid cultural appropriation shit. Like, other people can sell food. They can do takes on it. This chick is obviously just, like, trying to, she's basically an Asian Karen. Karens have been white mostly, but this is an Asian Karen. And she goes, oh, I threw out my Chinese food lunches. Tough shit. So you got bullied when you were in elementary school and you got to take it out on this business owner like 20 years later? Like, what's your problem? So anyways, and then she just goes on this whole thing, right? And so her whole thing is like, we're gonna like, mobilize like a group of angry like losers on Twitter who have nothing to do because they're all out of work because of COVID, or they're like sitting at home, and we're gonna go fuck with this person. So then they went, and because this is so funny, because everybody's like, cancel culture is not real. Everybody's like, cancel culture is a myth, or it's not real. Nobody's like, you don't get to have what do they say? You don't get to have like not be criticized or whatever. Like that doesn't give you freedom of speech, isn't freedom from criticism. So anyways, but it doesn't mean it's like cancel culture. So they went and they straight up found, so they were selling soup out of this like commercial kitchen called Permission that was like basically renting them space. And so they messaged this place. This is the middle of a pandemic where like small businesses are like getting decimated and struggling, right? They message, and then this is the message back. They go, "Hi, Evie, Evie, we saw your tweet yesterday and have been working since to make these necessary changes. Our community is extremely important to us, and honoring the history of the area is something we greatly value. We've decided to part ways with the broth bar in our space, and thank you for calling us into this conversation." So they literally got this place kicked out of their business. I hope that they sue this place, because there was not any sort of like, there was no kind of like breach of contract. I'm sure the place, when they signed the lease, they knew exactly. They're like, yeah, we sell broth. The funny thing is too, is then I saw David Frum, who's like this Canadian writer who's like big in the US or whatever. And then he responded in regards to this, basically saying like, yeah, there's like in the Atlantic, they did a piece on pho, how, because like Vietnam was like a French colony, and that they were mostly a pork-based society, and pho is beef soup, and basically it's based off of like French cuisine. So essentially, like what he's saying is like the Vietnamese essentially took it from the French. They didn't take it because they were like under French rule, but it's like not theirs originally either. The whole thing is idiotic, other than the fact that you're like, there's one thing to like make a stink about it. Like there's another thing you're like, you're going to go like tell Asian people who are legit upset about this, sure, don't go eat there. But like, you're going to go like actually get them kicked out of their space. That is fucking nuts. And the fact that anybody thinks this is like, okay. Oh, and this is also another thing. So another thing they were getting mad about was they have a photo in their little, because it's like a little takeaway counter, right? And so, because they sell broth, different types of broth. And so they're calling it a brothel, right? They go, it's a brothel. They think they're hilarious with their wordplay. It's a brothel. You get broth at the brothel, right? And they have their jerk sauce. A lot of sexual innuendos. And so she's like, oh my God, you sexualize jerk. Like, what a fucking loser that you'd be mad about sexualizing jerk sauce. Like, you're just seriously finding stuff to get mad about. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, don't you know about like brothels and sex work or whatever? And you're like, these are all people who are like every other, because they're obviously like very left-leaning type of people who would get mad about cultural appropriation of food. These people are all pro sex work, and then the moment that they're like find a thing that they need to get mad about, then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, that's disgusting that you would sexualize jerk sauce. And oh, it's disgusting. And so anyways, and then the founder basically gave in right away, because they have another location too. So I guess she was like, I don't want to lose my entire livelihood overnight because of like people being mad about soup and dumplings I sell. So that she went and she probably found, it sounds like a boilerplate template of all the just like kind of performative social justice-y nonsense that you're supposed to say. So it says, over the course of the past 48 hours, it has come to my attention as the founder of Ripe Nutrition, I've made some mistakes, big ones. It was important to me to take a moment to collect my thoughts and decide how to best address the situation. First, I want to thank each and every person who took the time to bring this to my attention, something that I now recognize should never have been their burden to bear. I picture her crying, like, she's writing this in like a quill pen and like tears are like dripping on the piece of paper. It is not the responsibility of people of color to educate me, a white woman, on why cultural appropriation isn't acceptable. That responsibility is mine and mine alone. Anyone who has spoken out about this should never have had to do this work, and I apologize for the insensitivity and ignorance as the founder of Ripe Nutrition. Having grown up in Toronto and being exposed to the wealth of ethnic foods that exist in our great city, my only thought when I started this brand was to celebrate those incredible foods that I've loved my whole life. That celebration has crossed the line into appropriation, and for that, I'm sorry. My intention in the marketing and branding I've created was to use humor and cheek as a way to stand out in a incredibly competitive market. And in doing so, I've hurt the very people I intended to make smile, and there's nothing humorous about that. From the bottom of my heart, I apologize to every person who has felt belittled, overlooked, or hurt by my actions. Apologies are rarely enough, and in light of the current situation, I want to be clear about the steps being taken to remedy the situation. She goes, I've removed all the products on my website that are culturally insensitive, like jerk sauce. Oh my God. And have halted all wholesale sales on these products as well. I've consulted with my staff and we're in the process, blah, blah, blah. Basically all this shit. She goes, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Blah, 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 blah. And it's funny because there was a thing like this about a year ago that happened in New York City, actually, where, again, another white woman, I think this one was a Jew, opened a Chinese food restaurant, and she basically said, "Oh, we're doing Chinese food, but clean Chinese food." And people are like, "Oh, what? Chinese food's dirty?" And you're like, "No, just like in the nutrition world, they use the terms clean and dirty to refer to like, clean food is like doesn't use lots of like processed food and like tons of like oils and all that stuff, because like Chinese food is actually like nutritionally not good for you. Like a lot of the dishes are like crazy high in oil. Like tons of oil. So she's like, we're just going to do healthy takes on Chinese food. And people are like, oh, so what, our food's dirty? And she's like, no, that's just the terminology. So anyways, everybody freaked out. I don't remember. She maybe gave like a brief apology, but she kind of just told them to go fuck themselves. And then it just like everything, it boils over. That's the thing is like, I mean, the one thing with this is she obviously did lose one of her locations. But for the most part, the stuff always just boils over. They find something else that they're mad about, and they just move on to the next thing. Now, granted, the woman with the restaurant in New York who did this Chinese food, joke's on her, because then this Chinese virus came along that surely put her out of business. So if the Chinese people complaining about it didn't, then the Chinese virus did. So maybe she's the reason why this stuff all happened. But the comments on this post too, people are like legitimately so stupid that they're so like just mad. They're like someone is like, oh my God, and calling it a brothel is incredibly inappropriate. And like all these people are talking about like sex work. They're like, how could you call it a brothel? And like people are like, you should donate all your money to like the people you've hurt. You didn't hurt anybody. Like calling something jerk sauce didn't hurt anybody. You're allowed to sell fucking soup. Like, it's funny, in Seinfeld, there was the soup Nazis. Like, these are the actual soup Nazis. They're telling this woman she can't sell soup because she's white. It's insane. Anyways, if you live in Toronto, go support Ripe Nutrition. That's the only way you can really get back at these woke scolds who are just making up stuff to get pissed off about. That's honestly so insane. Because, like, how would these people feel if there's so many restaurants that are run by Chinese people that are, like, not their cuisine. So what? They're allowed to do it and other people aren't? Like, there's no rules for this. Like, it's straight just trying to be mean, and I don't know. It's ridiculous. But anyways, people lit this chick up for the very least. She's not going to get fired, nor would I want her to, but she is. I should do a segment called the Dumb Bitch of the Week. She would win it. The thing is, too, is like, I want to know, like, is she actually, like, is she so fragile that she's actually hurt by, like, a little, like, shop selling bone broth? Like, they sell bone broth in New York. It's like, bone broth is not the domain of Vietnamese. Makes no sense. Anyways, I'm just rambling now. That's been the episode. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I appreciate you all, everybody who watches on YouTube. Not that many, but appreciate you too. And have a happy Thanksgiving. If you enjoy this episode, subscribe to me on YouTube. Leave me a review. Everything helps. All right. Bye.